You're listening to Raising Anchor on 990 WBOB. Welcome to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show with Matt Entrigan and Jason Carey. Your home for news, analysis, and everything Rhode Island FC. Each week, they take you inside the locker room, inside the tactics, and inside the storyline shaping RIFC. Now, here's Matt and Jason.
Rhode Island FC pulverized the Charleston Battery 4-0 in a tale of two very different halves. We're going to break down the history made, the record shattered, and discuss the significance of this string of performances that shine a light on just how serious a threat RIFC is in the Eastern Conference this season. A little later, we're going to have Oliver Scholes join us from the Blazing Musket on the Hartford athletic side of things to help us preview the second coming of El Clamico this season ahead in Prinx Cup action on the weekend. But first and foremost, I got to check in with the co-host with the most, Mr. Jason Carey. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. I'm ready to read way too much into this game, and like we are now favorites in the East, right?
Going to win the whole thing at this point. Yeah.
And then it's funny, ironic that teams with cannons on their logos are not having a great week. So
not a good week if you have artillery on the badge, that's for sure. Listen, it's amazing what a win like this can do to lift the spirits. You know, we talk about how sports are connected to our personal lives, our community lives, everything. And sometimes winning is just the cure-all for a lot of things. And for those that made it out on what was a cold and bleary, started with rain, the rain went away, but it was very reminiscent of that early 0-0 game where we saw Charleston for the very first time in history, a completely different ending, a storybook ending, if you will, for the Amber and Blue. We're going to unpack a lot of that game before we jump quickly into the preview because we only have so much time on the show this week, but want to jump straight into our reactions to the match itself. Listen, Jason, in summary now, Rhode Island FC have scored 7 goals and only allowed 1 in their last 2 league matches. If you want to macro that out to the Open Cup as well, only allowing a second goal, I should say, in there and scoring 8 goals altogether. Talking about the game itself, though, started with a quick look at goal. Leo Afonso had a breakout moment. I think he may have wanted to have passed that ball to JJ. You could see JJ kind of already like going, hey, let's not start the match like this. Charleston had a couple of quick looks at goal in the early half as well. But then the game mostly fell flat in that first half until we saw a little bit of resurgence from a JJ header right in the dying minutes of stoppage time. Lots of fans came to us at the halftime because we're out on the top of Defiance nowadays, and we're talking about, I think the theme of it was spent a lot of time watching a lot of nothing was what I heard from a lot of the people out there. Wanted to agree, we knew how difficult the Battery were going to be. It was still a top 4 team. We had to put some respect on what they were trying to accomplish this season, despite the massive amounts of turnover in their squad. But this RIFC team in the first half felt like it was a smidge off. A story we've talked about a couple times this season where the final pass in the sequence wasn't there. The combination felt a little too hurried, a little too rushed. Players were putting the ball too far forward, maybe too far behind at times. And it just felt like we needed a little bit more time to grow into the game. Absolutely.
I admit I was a little worried there in that halftime. I think I told you, like, we better not rue those chances, right? We were creating some opportunities. They're mostly half chances, but it felt like something was there, that it was just slightly off, like you said. And I was just really worried that we were going to go into a second half and, really be beating ourselves up for not converting any of those. Obviously, that was not the case, but,
I got a little beat up because I had a 0-0 prediction. People don't understand. I will play the devil's advocate in the prediction league on the Discord channel because, 1, if I get it right, then you guys can all hate me. But 2, like, if I am wrong, that usually means Rhode Island's winning. It's kind of the same way I place bets on things. Like, if I want my team to succeed, I'll either reward myself financially or I'll get the win out of it for, a championship playoff berth. So those are the kinds of things I look at. But getting back into this, going into the second half, whatever Cano did to make the adjustments, and we'll get his words here in a second, this team came flying out the gates in the second half. It was a completely different animal inside that second 45. We see the goals from Williams, both of his brace, Quizera getting a goal, a late penalty from Busy. It made for a very long breeze flight home for the Charleston Battery. And, I think of the conversations we had post game and after we had talked with Kano and company, and we asked ourselves, is this team the real deal now, right? Like, is this a good team? We've seen inklings of it. We've seen the spark now and a consistency of these last 3 performances. And it feels like this team has the fight. They have the fire. I don't think Open Cup slowed them down in any way, shape, or form. And now they're seeing action and doing incredible damage against the top 4 team. Jason, are we winning the cup? I mean, it sounds like a pipe dream, but like, it's amazing what a few wins and a really good performances can do.
I mean, we're absolutely in the pole position to win the Breeze Cup at a minimum here, right? I mean, Charleston's really going to have to come out with, like 5-0 performance or something to wrestle that away from us. Beyond the goal scoring, we got to give credit to Rodriguez finding a goal contribution on the night, now leading the club in assists with back-to-back regular season contributions. And we've got to give Koke his flowers as well, too. Now his 26th clean sheet. But on top of that, he joined, RIFC goalkeeping elite Jackson Lee in getting an assist in his professional career. So
yeah. Not just first in RIFC colors, first ever in his professional career. You love to see it. And it's funny is that goal. I mean, Koke, you could see Koke what he was trying to do with it. It felt like the way the bounce happened, that both the defender and JJ got a bad read on it. JJ was able to trap it down and set up what was, in my eyes, one of his best goals ever. He's going to say differently in that post game here in a second, but honestly, like this was an important game. We talked to Kano about the importance of beating teams like this, creating that momentum, generating the desire to go after the next game and the next game after that. And I can't think of anything bigger than this. And you look at it even further and say, hey, when you look at the Charleston Battery, and we continue to call them a perennial team, since Ben Pierman took them over, and I don't think our fans that have only been following the club since Rhode Island FC got involved, like going back prior in the rest of the championship era of USL, the Charleston Battery were not always good. Like it took Ben Pierman kind of revitalizing that team back in 2023, where they went on to the USL Cup final before we actually saw them back in that stance of superiority within the league. Jason, under Ben Pierman, Charleston Battery have only conceded a game of 4 goals or more just 4 times. So this is not normal it's not always necessarily a normal scoreline in soccer to begin with, but this is not something you usually see from the Battery. I went back and counted how many times they blanked a team with 4 or more goals, and it was like quadruple the number of output. So this is not something we usually see from Ben Pierman. Their worst loss since Pierman came under control of this team, May 13th, 2023, they lost to San Antonio 7-0, and that was the San Antonio team that had just been one of the best USL teams of all time, winning the 2022 USL Cup final. So we join Lou City. We join a good Lou City. We join an incredibly good San Antonio, Tampa Bay when they were still rocking on all of their markers, and an Indy 11 team is the only teams that have ever put 4 or more against this Charleston Battery since the Ben Pierman era. You got to feel good about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a good company to have there.
Absolutely. So let's talk about how Kano constructed this game day roster. I don't think there's a lot of surprises here for fans that have been paying attention this season, but I think that there's some conversation to be had that we may have our starting 11 for the rest of the season, bar injury or rotation, where last year maybe we took a lot longer to figure out who that best 11 would be on the squad.
Yeah, taking a look at the squad here, we've got Koke Vegas and net here with a back 4 there of Frank Nodarce, Karifa Yao, Amadi Diop, Aldair Sanchez, Grant Stoneman, Clay Holstad there in the midfield, Jose Quizera, Augustine Rodriguez, and Leo Alfonso as your midfielders, with JJ Williams there up top. It's definitely a very strong lineup here. And like you said, I think this is the first team that everyone else in the squad will be trying to kind of break into.
Yeah, I mean, great to see Zach Harivo return to the 18-man game day selection after having been out since the very first game of the season after taking that knock against Sporting Jacks, but also tough to see AST already return to the unavailable list. I know, fans asked, is he hurt? We didn't see him at the game to get the confirmation, and I didn't ask Kano, the unavailability report is a weird thing. It's not just the injury report, it's the discipline report. Most often it's the eligibility, can a player play, but sometimes it just takes people out for weird reasons. That's not to say that he isn't injured, and I hope it's nothing severe, but you hate to see him kind of yo-yo from being fit and ready to go and to back on the DL, so to speak.
Yeah, especially with how great he was for us last year. Even if he's not going to crack maybe this first 11, we know that he can be a huge asset to bring off the bench.
Absolutely. Want to get into the heroes and zeros before the break. My hero of the night was Defiant 1636, running out of smoke because of all the goals scored. You know, I feel like every year we're due one game where we just unlock the goal scoring locker, and I hope it's not the only game of the season that we see that. But it's always fun where, you know, we get a couple of games, 1 goal here, 0. We know the history. We know the performance of goal scoring at Centerville Bank Stadium. And then you get that one moment. It's like, where's the emergency, you know, break glass and pull out the extra smokes, because they were popping them all off and they were running very short on spot. I don't think there was a smoke left that had a 5th goal. And it almost happened. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if there would have been any smoke on that 5th goal, because that's how much they triggered in that game celebration. My 0, though, for the night, I think it's going to be Leo Afonso. No disrespect to the player. He absolutely had a rough night. Seemed like he was just out of sync on that left side, often not really combining well with Aldair Sanchez. Passes, redirects, just missed on both sides of it. Again, I mentioned that opening shot where he could have just fed JJ, who was he was primed and ready to shoot. It was just a lot of mistiming. It felt like he was hurried in some places and a little too off the mark in others. Definitely seemed frazzled on the night.
Maybe a little too into his head, something we've seen with Noah Fuson at times. Getting to my heroes, I'm going to go with JJ Williams. I think he's been that menace to the back line, but he's finally now getting those kind of consistent goals and assists to his name. So may that long continue. I mean, he's almost at this point reached his entire total for last year. So I think we're finally seeing the best of him. I also want to shout out to Elton Garcia, a ref who I think we've maybe given some grief in the past for, but I really appreciate the flow that he just kind of let the boys play out there. You know, I was with like 1-2 cards at best, and he kind of just let the game flow. So I appreciate that. For my 0, I'm going to show the weather. It's unfortunate that, you know, for such a great game, not a great turnout. You know, these is games where people will look back and say, "Oh, I wish I should have been there." So hopefully that weather will turn pretty soon, and we can get some nice sunshine over there. And
definitely need it. I would say maybe the other 0 is that every single goal was scored away from Defiance.
Yeah,
I have conspiracy theories growing that maybe the flags are too much of a distraction, and that's why they always sky them on this side. And then I'm obviously teasing, but like it's brutally ironic that they didn't score any of the 4 goals on the Defiant side of the net.
We'll have to keep an eye on that going forward in the season.
You know, getting into Elton Garcia for a second, because we didn't know the head ref as it was a midweek game before USL Pro released the ref announcements. When you said Elton Garcia, I groaned. Like I knew the name, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't really think I like this ref, thinking he was maybe more in the downward spiral of how he's treated Rhode Island. But I went back and looked, and I think if we're going to build a referee Mount Rushmore, we know Natalie Simon's up there, but I think Elton Garcia is making a strong case, because went back and looked at the way he managed this game, looked back at the games that he's overseen for us in the past, and didn't realize maybe who he was. I feel like Garcia is the kind of ref that understands that player contact does not mean it's an automatic foul. You know, there's so many of those matches we see where there's, you know, over 40 fouls across both sides of the teams. They become this like stop and go. It breaks down the rhythm and flow of a match. And you could tell that's what Charleston wanted on the night. They kept falling down, and Garcia kept saying, get up. Get up. I know that there's going to be some argument from fans of the Battery saying, well, hey, Casidu got hurt with an early injury exit, so he let the game get a little too out of control. Not enough yellows. I would disagree with all of that. Sometimes you just got to let the boys play, and I think Garcia did incredible on that. The only other thing I heard a slight bit of confrontation on, and we heard it in the post game, JJ Williams being questioned if that was an offside goal. I went back and watched it, and by the way I understand IFAB and the laws of the game, that did not look like an offside goal. Got 2 questions in the mailbag about it. So I was wondering if you could explain why you think or do not think that the JJ goal, the first one, was offside.
Just want to preface, not a expert on IFAB.
You are the expert. That's why we bring you here.
What I understand, when he at the time he was onside, there was then a deflection off of a Charleston player. So then he's good.
Yeah, and I think the key word there is deflection, because in the rules of the game, if the ball's hit at a player and it deflects or redirects or is it bounces in a way other than the defender having an opportunity to control it, that's when offsides gets counted. When you look back at the play, Quizera takes, I don't know if it was a shot or a pass, but he frames the ball, and Joey Akapunonu jumps into the air to head and deflect the ball away with his head. Like, he intentionally went to go and intercept that. It took a bad deflection and fell at an offsides JJ Williams, but because of the way that works, he remained very much onside. And when a striker's right there at right time, right place, you got to bury that, and that's exactly what Williams did. So for those asking, it was very much an onside goal because of that. But hey, listen, when we return, we've got more RIFC reactions as well as conversations with Coach Kano and some of the players after the 4-0 win. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Thank you for listening to tonight's broadcast, powered by Sprout Coworking. For all your business needs, large or small, visit sproutcoworking.com. Powering 990 WBOB, that's sproutcoworking.com.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entricket and Jason Carey.
All right, next up here is Coach Kano Smith on his reactions from the match.
I think it was a game of 2 halves. They made us think really hard in the first half, and it was difficult to get the ball off them. We made some adjustments. We tried to defend differently, and I thought then that made us more dangerous in transition. And I thought that's where all those moments came from. So credit to the players. They had to suffer a lot in the first half, but they didn't give in. We talk about bending and not breaking, so we didn't break, and then when we got our moment, we were clinical, which was nice to see us being clinical for once this season.
Did that JJ chance at the first half, was that kind of like a harbinger of things to come, the way you created that chance and the near goal there? Was that kind of a sign that things were changing in the game, even though it came so late in the half?
Yeah, I think we were definitely building some more momentum towards the end of the half. But yeah, I think first half I thought they were much better than we were.
Kano, the 2 games now, both wins, 7 goals. Is this the evolution of what you've been trying to accomplish so far this season, or have you been making critical adjustments along the way? Is this the style of play you expected from game 1, or is this something else before what you saw in preseason?
No, because both games we would like to have more of the ball. So, I mean, going on the road to a difficult place in Lexington, obviously you're gonna have less of the ball, but at home we would prefer to have more of the ball. They had a lot, and they were dangerous in the first half. Second half they had a lot. I don't think they were dangerous, but yeah, I would prefer to have the ball than not have the ball. And yes, we practice penalties, to answer your question.
What changes did you make to just kind of deny the space they were creating? What did you do differently to make them less dangerous?
We defended a bit deeper, and we pressed with 2-9. So Augustine went and joined JJ, so we can get pressure higher, because their 3 center backs were spread so wide, so it was difficult to get the ball off them. And their center backs are good at retaining possession, so it was difficult for us to get close to them, and then which allowed them to reach the final third easier. So defending with 2 versus 3, I think it allowed us at least to get closer. And if you're using a boxing analogy, at least lay a glove on them a little bit. Like we weren't landing any punches early.
Did you see room offensively for you, though? If you did clean things up a little bit, did you see gaps that were available for you guys going the other way?
I think it's always dangerous. I just think the profiles of player and quality of player that we have, like they're good athletes, and not just good athletes, they're good soccer players, but I think we're always going to be dangerous in transition just based off of the profile of the players and the speed that they have. Like, all those guys up there are willing and able runners. They can run.
Speaking of penalties, Busy gets that penalty and buries it. Is there a priority order as a sub, him coming in? Is there a reason JJ didn't get it for the hat trick? Can you walk us through the decision?
Yeah, we have a penalty order list. It's up. JJ was higher than Busy in the list, but he unselfishly, he's a team player. He decided to give it to him, which is very, very humble for him to do, because he can go and get his hat trick in a lesser pressure moment, but he's passed the ball to his teammate to go get his hat trick, so to get his goal, so credit to him. But yeah, I thought it was a very very humble move by him.
How well is Joe Jay playing for you guys right now? I mean, obviously defensively he does a great job, and offensively he's scored 3 goals already this year. He's giving you a lot so far in the early part of the season.
Yeah, he plays that position a lot with Rwanda, and he scores. So we thought we might as well tap into it. But yeah, Aldir deserves to be on the field too. So that's the way to get them both on the pitch. But Joe Jay has always been one of our more dangerous attacking players. His 1v1 qualities are not everybody has them.
You mentioned the quality in the first half and the second half. Does a win like this, especially a high-scoring attack and a clean sheet against a team like Charleston in particular, does that do more for you and the team going into the rest of the season, or is it just every single opponent you treat the same and a win is a win?
Yeah, a win is a win. Charleston's a good team, very good team. Ben's a good friend of mine, so yeah, I mean, we enjoy it. We enjoy it tonight, but yeah, I think tonight's result has no impact on what's going to happen Saturday and then moving forward.
How do you approach Saturday's game? What's the stuff playing wise, starting wise? How are you approaching that game with obviously the USL Championship being the biggest thing going for you? Yeah,
just like every game, try to win. Just try to put the best team possible on the field. So you have to obviously take into account that people that played a lot of minutes tonight, but I guarantee you the ones that played a lot of minutes tonight, they're going to tell me that they're fine to play Saturday. So at times you have to go with the hot hand, but you have to find a balance of trying to keep them healthy and keep them available for the rest of the year.
What kind of donuts are you getting for the team tomorrow?
A certain Spanish bakery that's in Providence. It's probably one of our favorites. Players definitely love it. So.
Well deserved.
All right, that was Cano Smith. Listen, got to address the elephant in the room there, Jason. Taking pot shots at me after I took pot shots at him last week. I, of course, was not able to watch the Open Cup in person. So, I was a bit frustrated having watched it from afar. And I wrote, do we practice penalties? 2 things. We've now learned that, yes, the team does. Cano made sure that information was relayed to me in person after not being at the last post game. And 2, Cano reads my tweets. So those are the 2 key takeaways for me in that. All jokes aside, and it's full fun. I've decided I'm going to laugh and steer into the skid on that and take the L. I deserve it. I'm going to have to invite Cano out to some coffee, and we're going to have some dialogue at one point. All good things. Want to get into something really important he said there. He said that he wants more possession from his team. I thought that was interesting because I thought that Cano ball, the way he would want that, doesn't always yield the best success, and that we do better when we don't have the ball and are more brilliant and see more flashes of success in our transition game, which is kind of what this night was all about on the breakaways. How do you feel about what Cano said there?
Yeah, I struggle to understand that. I wonder if he believes that the fact that we scored 4 goals doesn't have anything to do with the transition, and that's just the quality and the way it's set up, and it doesn't have any correlation to the amount of possession that we have. From our perspective, whenever we see this team have, let's say, somewhere around 40 or maybe even a little lower in terms of possession, and not some sort of dominant performance where we're getting 60% of the ball, tend to feel that this team operates a little bit better in regards to the way they go into those transitions, those counters, instead of kind of lots of sideways passes that don't go anywhere. It just doesn't feel like those 2 are compatible. It's his team. He's the coach. I kind of don't understand that. I don't think this team is a possession-oriented team.
We'll have to see if that becomes a storyline through the rest of the season. Getting back into the PKs and the non-joke side of it, thought that was pretty incredible. His describing JJ Williams as a humble player, not taking advantage of getting the Hattie there. I didn't even think about it at the time. Where is that priority order? But absolutely, JJ Williams would be above it. What were your overall thoughts?
Yeah, it was great to see Dwayne Atkinson getting a goal, second of the season here, third of his Rhode Island FC career. 3 of his 3 career goals have come in less than 5 minutes after entering the game.
He's speedy busy.
Yeah. And then also interesting kind of stat here: Rhode Island FC has scored in its last 5 penalties in the regular season, dating back to November 2024. So maybe it's not so much penalties that's the issue; it's the actual shootout. So seems like in-game penalties kind of got that nailed on. Put that in a shootout format. It's a crapshoot at that point.
It's a crap shootout for sure. Let's get here into JJ Williams and his comments on the game.
All right, we'll get started. JJ Williams today scored his 49th and 50th career regular season goals in the USL Championship. A brace to lead the 4-0 win. We'll open it right up to questions.
JJ, congratulations on 50. Want to ask, that second goal of the night, is that the best goal you've ever struck in your entire career? I mean, that was a sensational goal.
Oh, no. My dad's going to be happy about that one for sure. He'll probably have it on replay for the next week or so. But if you go to JJ Williams YouTube soccer, you'll see all the goals I've scored. And that one, maybe it'll get into the top 20, but it means a lot. I mean, I'm really happy to score that one. And that was number 50, correct? Number 50. It means a lot. So it was a great goal, but I got a lot in the reserve, in the bank. So
JJ, was the chance you had at the end of the first half, the header,
yeah,
was that like a harbinger of things to come? Because you guys weren't doing much offensively, but it seemed like that sparked you guys. Something changed from that point on, because the second half you came out and were kind of a different team.
Yeah, I mean, they were just so spread whenever they were trying to build, and whenever we would win the ball, if we could play forward, if we could switch the play immediately, I mean, you see how many chances that we had that we created from that. That chance at the end of the half, I mean, I would have loved to bury that one.
A little behind you.
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, if I can get service like that every game and multiple chances, I would love it. Absolutely love it. So that's like a big question mark for us, is just trying to continue to get those chances more often, more frequently. But it definitely jump-started us a little bit going, because we could see that they didn't really hurt us much, and then we got that chance at the end of the half where we could easily have been going to halftime 1-0. So we came out in the second half and really started early, and that was big.
What's your perspective on your first goal? I mean, you were clearly offside, but how the interpretation of the rules are, you kind of take advantage of the opportunity there?
Yeah, I mean, you're taught to finish everything out, and if they call offsides, they call offsides, but if not, then you end up with a brace. So that's just the way you play it out. I mean, there was one where it got nicked and we were pressing and they called a foul. They called it late and I almost shot that one. I just, just out of instinct, that's what we try to train, is just to finish the play. So I'm just thankful that the bounce went my way today.
JJ, 7 goals in league play in the last 2 games between this one and Lexington. What's behind the clicking behind this offense right now? What started this goals galore that we're experiencing now?
I would say I would like to give all the credit to the attacking players, but to be honest, it's the midfielders, center backs. I mean, everybody is just running like crazy. They're running like crazy, pressing like crazy. The distance that these guys are covering to put us in positions to be successful, I mean, they're doing a fantastic job of supporting us. So, I mean, thankfully, we've been able to bury our chances, but you go and look at Clay Holstad's numbers, you go look at Hugo's numbers. I mean, these guys are really putting in the work for us, and we've been strong defensively. So, I mean, really all the credit goes to them. We just have buried our chances and been clinical.
So would you say this is more about the game plan that's always existed since the beginning of the season and it's just starting to bear fruit? Or were there tactical adjustments that you guys have been making as a group that we've seen success in these last 2 games?
No tactics. I mean, it's just us showing up. It's us showing up from the first whistle. When tonight things aren't going our way and we haven't figured it out, we make a couple adjustments, and where we're pressing, how we're shifting and sliding, and next thing you know, we're able to minimize the damage for them trying to hurt us, and then we're able to capitalize whenever we're getting transition, which has been big. So we just have to show up. I said it out there. I say it all the time. You guys hear it from me. It's a matter of what team shows up. We can play with the best of them, but we have to make sure that we do all the hard work first, and then the scoring the goals is the fun part.
So that's JJ Williams. Wasn't surprised that he said he had a better goal on his trophy wall was upset and surprised that he didn't tell us which is his all-time.
Yeah, I guess he's gonna make us go back and do the research.
Got to go to
for there,
JJ Williams
yeah.
at youtube.com. Yeah.
Funny him saying there too, like it's not a tactic, so it's okay. So it's all just vibes.
And then, but he was like, yeah, but then we shift slide and then make these adjustments. Like that might be a tactic. Yeah. How did you feel about the fact? I know that it wasn't in this one, but it was in the Rhode Island FC live stream of the press conference. We may have to drop this entire segment in the future if we have people seeing it before we release it now. So who knows what this will look like in the future. But JJ Williams, not a fan of the cucumber Gatorade. How are you doing over there, buddy?
But everyone's got their own taste. I mean, sometimes people can be wrong.
I encourage you the next time we're in the post game to just bring a bottle of Pepino to him and see what he says. Thoughts on JJ's goal before we move on to Quizera?
Yeah, I mean, he recorded his 6th career multi-game for RIFC, got 49th and 50th there. I mean, it's that, that was probably my favorite goal of his, the 50th there that I've seen him score for Rhode Island. So whatever one he's talking about, we don't talk about those goals.
I'm curious. That's got to be his deepest ranged goal. I feel like he's so much more a physical presence closer into the box, whether it's with his feet or with his body. I don't think we've seen as many, it wasn't a banger, but he fakes, he crosses back over and shoots from outside the box. I would be pressed to say, at least in RFC, where he's now 24 career goals with the club across all competitions, that might be the deepest range shot he's taken and converted so far in his career.
Yeah, I definitely think for RFC, previous teams, who knows?
We don't know how long he's going to be with us, but assuming we get him for at least another season, do you think it will be a long time coming before someone dethrones him as the all-time leading scorer? Just knowing how far he's now breaking away with Chico gone, it seems like there's going to be a very difficult mountain to climb for the next striker to come in and dethrone him.
Yeah, unless we replace him with a prolific striker, and then especially just due to the nature of strikers being more sought after, it's harder to keep a hold of them. That is probably a record that could stand for quite some time.
All right, we're going to move past Jojea Quizera's interview for the sake of time, but I do want to ask one question back to what Kano said about it. He mentioned that with Rwanda, he plays on the right. And so we now know that he is leading the team in regular season performance with 3 goals on the season. I want to ask, if Quizera is this weapon that we've seen so much success on the right side, why did we see the experiment on the left for so long? You had players like Noah who potentially could have moonlit over there. You had a Nathan Messer and a Gabby Alves in year 1, which different profiles, but didn't get playing time as a left wing back. Kano mentioned in this that one of the reasons Quizera is to the right is it's almost impossible to take Aldair off the pitch right now. He's earned his way into the starting 11. But do we have a theory why Kano started him on the left to begin with in season 1?
I mean, in season 1, right, we had Steven Turnbull, and he wasn't ever a wing back. I forget exactly what MLS team he played for a little bit, but he was deployed as a left midfielder. So he had some kind of experience playing on that side, being left-footed. It's kind of the obvious notion to kind of slide them over there, unless, we're talking about some sort of winger, like the way he's playing right now, coming in and scoring, because he really didn't have that kind of goal threat in his locker. It was more about the speed, the dribbling, getting past people and setting up the pass for someone else to score. Now that we're seeing him cutting inside, doing his best Ian Robin kind of imitation, I think it's a very much different story.
Do you think Kano at some point is like, man, I should have made this move a lot earlier?
I mean, with all the other players we've had shuffling around, maybe it's just one of those things where he finally fit all the pieces of the puzzle together, and it kind of just feels like everything's clicking.
Well, it looks like a beautiful puzzle, and I cannot wait to see how this experiment continues. But we are going to jump right back into it. Now, a reminder. Actually, I should start this correctly because I'm going to have to cut this later, Jason. So a reminder for those listening on 990 WVOB to go back to our YouTube page and check out the coach and player interviews we just had on the show, as we're skipping past those breakdowns and those interviews, and we got to look ahead because it's El Clamico time. And Jason, we've brought in an expert from the other side of the derby, Oliver Scholes, of the Blazing Musket, a one-man army covering all things Hartford Athletic. He's got a new podcast, the Average Fan Podcast, finally giving a spotlight to that team. And I got to be careful. I don't want to give too many flowers to this team. I know where we stand here, but we got to bring Oliver in. And Oliver, I got to be honest, as great as it is to have you here, you're probably not going to get the warmest reaction from fans on tonight's show. But how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. I mean, I'm not going to hear the reaction that I'm getting, so that's fine. They can boo in their houses or boo in the bar where they're listening to this. But I'm doing great. It's been beautiful weather this week in Hartford, and I'm looking forward to this weekend.
I mean, it might be beautiful weather, but it does not look like it's going to be good weather for this match. I did the preliminary weather report, and it looks like it's going to be classic New England rain.
Yeah, that's been typical, actually. We've had a couple of weeks recently where it's been great during the week, and then it's reached Saturday, and there's a Hartford game, and it's 38 degrees, 42 degrees, something like that. So that sounds about right.
I'm always remiss that I remember Hartford Athletic famously saying we need an awning to get more fans into the stadium, and now Centerville Bank Stadium could also very much do with an awning. We talked about it last night. Like if they just got one, if they just got one on the center of the pitch, the wings can wait till the expansion if it happens. But man, awnings are nice.
And Hartford absolutely needs one.
I think every New England team needs one. But hey, let's get into the standings here, guys, because I want to make sure that we preface this with where our teams are at, even though we know this is a completely different competition on the weekend. So, Jason, after this incredible win, which we promised Oliver we would not remind him every second about, where does this team stand in the standings?
Yeah, so looking at the league here, RIFC are now in ninth place on a perfectly balanced 2-2-2 record. Now up to 8 points with a +3 goal difference after that 4-0 shellacking last night.
Jason, we're in ninth now, one step out of playoff contention, but a win in our next league game against Birmingham and some cheeky results going our way amongst other Eastern Conference teams could see us take as high as third place to open up the month of May. We talked about how important it was to be at the 10-point line by Birmingham. Now this is within a stone's throw. Are we back in the race for a potential playoff berth at home?
Oh, we're back, baby.
Simple as that. Oliver, walk fans through how Hartford's doing, because it's a bit of a hit and miss. It's a confusing tale for those that are not paying attention.
It certainly is. Hartford sitting sixth right now, 2 wins, 4 draws, 1 loss, 10 points, dead even on goal differential. Mostly due to a 4-0 shellacking by El Paso a couple of weeks ago. Outside of that, Hartford had a positive goal differential on the season. As you said, hit and miss, some really good results, some kind of iffy results, and that El Paso loss really standing out as a pretty poor performance.
I think everyone's getting shellacked by El Paso right now. That was kind of the surprise stepchild of the league this season. Looking at this from an internal standpoint, you know, we saw what Hartford accomplished last year after, you know, years of mediocrity, and I think that's being kind. Looking at what Hartford accomplished with the Jägermeister Cup win, looking at they were just inches from a home playoff berth themselves. Where is this club internally setting the barometer for playoff positioning compared to last season? Like, where do they need to be? Where do they expect to be by the end of the season?
Yeah, it's a home playoff game. That's the target. As you said, last year they missed it by not even a point, right? They finished level on points. They missed out on the head-to-head results with Pittsburgh, and then obviously they had to go to Pittsburgh and they lost on penalties there. And this year they're looking fourth or better, get a home playoff games.
All right, well then, I mean, Jason, let's get set for this because this is not a league game. Let's talk through this Prinx setup. It's so hard to have to change this sponsorship, but let's get into this, and let's also bring up the head-to-head here for a second.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we're looking at the Prinx Cup, so those records we talk about, we'll put those on hold for now. This is going to be the first round. Everyone's at 0 points, but looking at our head-to-head record against Hartford from the RIFC perspective, it's now 2 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss. But there was a draw last year at the Jägermeister Cup, that 2-2 game where, due to the rules, that then went into a penalty shootout. I think a lot of us fans kind of consider that a loss, myself included, but to be statistically accurate, those are the head-to-head records.
Is there a permanent asterisk to this record now because of this the way they do this tournament?
I mean, for fans, I think it always will be.
Absolutely. That's going to be like when you're at bar trivia right? The difference between winning and losing is going to be, do you remember that it was a penalty shootout victory for Hartford?
There's that one drunk guy who stands up and corrects the trivia host. Like, no,
Exactly.
you're wrong.
Exactly.
Oliver, from your side of things, how does this head-to-head look? We've already kind of got some early momentum here from the Open Cup this year. I know that that's a hard sell because of the way Brendan Burke rotated his team. How is it looking from the Hartford side?
Yeah, what I will say is these teams are playing a lot right now, and this is going to be 2 of 4 meetings this season. But looking over the games so far in El Clamico, for my money, none of these have been particularly good games. Each team has a 3-0 win that I'm sure at home, right, that left the home fans feeling pretty happy. Rhode Island got one in 2024. Hartford got one in 2025. But even those games, I don't think they were particularly good if you were, evaluating them as a contest. So I'm hopeful that we'll see something better in the future, although I'm not particularly sure about this weekend, the weather obviously being one factor in that.
Yeah, it should be. The weather is going to make this fun. Let's get into the availability report. We already have, I think, a Hartford fan asking for curiosity here. So, Jason, break us down on the Rhode Island side.
Yeah, looking at RIFC, Jamin Gogo Peters is questionable here. And then Amos Shapiro Thompson, we're not sure exactly what happened to him. He recently had an appearance with us, but was put back on the list. Hopefully nothing serious. We'd like to see him back pretty soon.
Go for it, Oliver.
Yeah, so Emmanuel Samadia remains out. It's pretty open right now that he has a visa issue. He's still in Sierra Leone and is not with the team, and maybe soon, but in the current climate, it's hard to be confident about that. And then there are 4 players, Barry Coffey, Matt Real, Babakar Njai, and Sadat Naku, who are all questionable. Some of those players, Babakar Njai has been out with an injury that he sustained at the very tail end of last season. Coffey, Real, and Naku are more minor injuries that they're dealing with, and I would be surprised if any of the 4 played this weekend, but there could be something Brendan Burke's sleeve.
I did the roster count, and with this many players out or questionable for Hartford, can Hartford even field an 18-man game day roster, or would this be academy players stepping up, or would you have injured players dressed just to throw Kano off from a tactics perspective?
It could be any of those. So if you look back to last season, there was actually a game at Pittsburgh in March of last year where Hartford, I think, named 16 players to the game day roster. One of those was a reserve keeper, and 2 of those were academy players who were under no circumstances going to take the pitch. So it was really 13 players, and I wouldn't be shocked if it was something similar again, where you might see maybe even a full 18, but it's not necessarily 18 guys who can go. At the same time, Barry Coffey, Matt Real, Babakar Njai, those are all guys who are close to a return, and so they might be available off the bench, even if they're not good for 45 or 60 minutes.
I remember the times when Rhode Island FC had this many hamstrung, no pun intended, injuries, and that is a difficult thing to go through. Speaking of RIFC, though, in their game day selections, we've got this as the same thing. You heard Kano if you listened to the interviews earlier. He's going to have players arguing to fight for a starting spot. They're going to be good to go despite the short rest. We know what the best version of this team looks like right now. So I've got it, Jason, as the exact same. It's going to be in that 3-4-1-2 back 4 in defensive transition of Koke Vegas and net, Amity Diop, Karifa Yao, and Frank Nodarse in the center back trio. That 4 of Aldair Sanchez on the left, Ugo Bacharach and Clay Holstead in the midfield pairing. Jojea Quizera continuing to see brilliance on the right side. We're going to have Petty as the maestro in the center, coming up at times to partner with Williams and Afonso, at other times being the distributor, and then Leo Afonso and JJ Williams in that front strike force. We had a lot of back and forth about this, Jay. On one hand, it's the Prinx Cup. It is short rest. I feel like we've seen Kano approach particularly these types of USL Group Cup games a little bit more importantly than, say, the US Open Cup. We just heard about what Kano said about the team fighting for these things. The 2 questions I've got for you, considering this is Hartford, who is going to be in net, and do we expect any rotation?
Yeah, that's a good question, because looking at this, we have not seen a second keeper, and we've got kind of mixed information about what's going on there. And we've seen the actual backup keeper be rotated. It hasn't consistently been one of them. So at this point, until Kano does something different, we're kind of just going to assume that Koke is just always going to be in net.
If you had to play the guessing game, though, would it be Castro or would it be Meyer? If he this is the game. I mean, technically, the USL One opponents would be the games, but if you're going to rotate in this cup competition, would you see Meyer or would you? I want a 50-50 bet from you here. I'll take the other side. You can pick.
I thought Castro was brought in to be the lead replacement, but then we didn't see him on the bench for a long time. So.
Just say Castro. We move on.
So yeah, I'll go with Castro.
All right. Any other thoughts before we go to break?
No. I wouldn't be surprised if this, like you said, was the lineup that he puts out there.
All right. Well, then when we return, we're going to break down the Hartford side of this derby. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Fans, as the weather becomes more and more unpredictable, be sure to check out 990 WBOB's weather page for all your temperature, storm, and travel info. Stay prepared for whatever Mother Nature has in store with the 990 WBOB weather page.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entricket and Jason Carey.
Back here with Oliver Scholes from the Blazing Musket and Average Fan podcast, covering all things Hartford Athletic. Oliver, before we went to break, I wanted to ask you, we were talking about rotation on the RFC side of things. Is rotation in general a good thing to see here for these Jaeger/Prinx games, or is that a bad idea when it comes to the overall development of your squad?
I think, contrary to the Open Cup, this is a competition that USL Championship teams in particular really should target. There's not a lot of great opportunities to win silverware. Last year, for example, Brandenburg was very explicit. If you get out of your group, you have to win 3 more games and then you win a trophy. And he was proved right, as Hartford won that competition, right? The proof of the pudding was in the eating there. So I think that's a model for other clubs. I don't think that this is a competition clubs should approach as we'll just, we'll throw some academy kids out there. If you have that option, we'll throw our reserves out there. It's an opportunity to win silverware. And that's something that is otherwise, I think, quite challenging in this league. Maybe if you're a League One club, you might feel a little bit differently about it, although Greenville went to the semifinals last year. So, I think it's a competition that they should take seriously. And I would fully expect both of these clubs to be going for it on Saturday.
You talk about going for it being serious. Obviously, the winners of last year's iteration of this different name, but same game. Walk us through what's different from last season to now in relation to this cup.
Yeah, so the biggest and most obvious difference for Hartford is that Kyle Edwards and Mamadou Dieng are both gone. And they combined for 24 goals in all competitions last season. And it's very hard if you're a club to look at from one season to the next and say, wow, we lost 24 goals from 2 forwards. I think we're going to be okay.
The Charleston Battery would agree with you very much right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Charleston is really going through it there. But also Hartford lost guys like Joe Farrell and Marlon Hairston, who both retired. They played over 2,000 minutes each last season. They were very, very close to ever present, Farrell in particular, in the lineup. And so there's been some really, really big changes. Augustine Williams has been the big name coming in. He obviously won the title with Pittsburgh last season. He's the second all-time leading scorer in USL Championship history. I think he's up to something like 85 goals now. So that's a huge addition, right? That's a significant addition in a player who is still in the peak of his career. And then they really remolded the midfield. They brought in these guys, Barry Coffey, Andres Hernandez, Christos Hadjipaskalis, all 3 of whom have been playing abroad in different capacities. And there's some guys who've come back. Michi Galina is back, right? There are other players who've returned. Samuel Cariaga has returned permanently. Last season he was on loan, but Hartford acquired him outright. But there's also a good mix of these new players. So it's a pretty different looking squad in a lot of ways.
I mean, I'm really interested. I didn't see Anthony Siaha move to the New York Red Bulls.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Matt. I don't really know what happened there. I think we should expect to see that happen in the future, though.
I know Rhode Island FC fans had wished that had come true. So then really quickly, let's break down with all of these new changes and this, you mentioned the new ideology in the midfield. I don't know if it's bared fruit because some of these players seem like they'll be questionable on the game this weekend, but what has Brendan Burke's tactics evolved to here in 2026 so far?
Well, there's not really been a lot of change. He's very clear about his philosophy, which is to press the life out of your opponent and try to generate transitional opportunities. And then when you win the ball from that press, you move forward as quickly as possible. There's a very crude measure of this, but, Hartford are, I think, 22nd out of 25 teams in the league in the absolute number of completed passes per match, but they're 8th in the league in the terms of the number of touches they're getting in the opposing penalty area. So there's this, they're not really a possession-oriented team, but they want to move forward very quickly, get the ball into the box, and generate a shooting opportunity. They're also one of the most vertical teams in the league in terms of their passing, if you look at the vertical passing yards for this team. So it's just get the ball downfield as quickly as possible. Last season, this was extraordinarily effective, particularly if you go from mid-June onwards. They went on this incredible run over the course of last summer where they were one of the hottest teams, honestly, one of the hottest stretches any team in the history of the USL Championship has ever had in that period. This season, it's not been nearly as successful, although some of that may be due to some of the injuries and the unavailability of a couple of key players. But I would still be looking for more of the same on Saturday. It's a very active press, looking to generate those transitional opportunities and create quality looks at goal in a very short span of time.
If I remember right, Samadia and Anderson were like the most lethal wing combinations in the league at periods of time. Is that what has hampered some of Hartford's success this year, or lack thereof?
100%. So you're absolutely right. Last year, I think Sebastian Anderson and Emmanuel Samadia combined for something like 86 chances created, which was like 30 more chances than any other pair of wingbacks in the league created. They combined for 15 assists. Emmanuel Samadia had, I think, 14, quote, big chances created, if that's a stat that you like, which was the second most of any player at any position in the league, and 5 more than any wingback created. So they were, in terms of the attacking fullbacks, they were the best pairing in the league. And Emmanuel Samadia has not played a single minute this season. So Hartford has been very, very one-sided. And when you can say pick your poison, we'll go down the left or the right, that's a very different proposition than we have to be picture perfect on the right-hand side because we don't have anything on the left.
So then walk us through what this starting 11 projected could be, considering how depleted Hartford is right now.
Yeah, so Anthony Siaha will almost assuredly start in goal. We've seen Enzo Carvalho start a couple of the cup games, but I do not anticipate that will continue in the USL Cup because of how much Brendan Burke has prioritized that as an opportunity for silverware. Bet 3 at the back, which is what Hartford has been doing all season. Britton Fisher, who's on loan, Jordan Scarlett, and Arturo Dispay, making up those numbers there. Beverly Makangila and Junior Morera playing kind of the 2 6-8 positions. Samuel Cariaga likely to play in front of them. A bit of a question mark over them as he works back from injury, whether or not he's available for 45, 60 minutes, something like that. Anderson obviously playing on the right-hand side. That remains kind of ever-present. He set a minutes record for this club last season, and whenever he's available, he's in the starting 11. TJ Prestis filling in on the left, as Hartford really doesn't have a whole lot of other options. Samadia unavailable, Matt Real hurt, Babacar Anjai hurt, and so it's down to Prestis. And then Augustine Williams and Michien Galina playing up top to round things out.
I look at this squad, and it's definitely not the same squad we saw in the Open Cup. A lot more rotation. We saw some of these players get into the game, but it was too little too late at that point within the Open Cup constraints. I'm looking at this and I'm trying to think of what we think the best or the most highly anticipated matchups are going to be. Where are the duels going to be on this pitch? We know how much these teams do not like each other on game day, and I'm trying to find those storylines. Oliver, I'm going to let you go first here as the guest. Where are the duels that we should be watching the most here in this matchup come Saturday?
I think one of the big X factors is Samuel Cariaga. He's a player who he played about 20 minutes in the season opener in Jacksonville. He had a goal and an assist in 20 minutes of play, and he then didn't play again until this last Saturday when he had a 10-minute cameo as a substitute as he comes back from injury. And he's so critical because he's a kind of element of Hartford's attack that they otherwise don't possess. When he's not on the pitch, and with Barry Coffey, who is his understudy, also injured, there's no attacking midfielder. Guys like Junior Morera, Beverly Makangila, the 2 other players I mentioned, Christos Hatzipaskalis, Andres Hernandez, they are not attacking players. They are 6s, they are 8s, they are holding midfielders. They are not bringing that element in the box. And Samuel Cariaga does that. He possesses a level of awareness of the pitch, of instinct in the attacking third that is not really present in those other players. And so I think for Hartford, what he brings on the pitch, whether he starts and he plays 45 minutes, or whether he comes on at halftime, that's something that I think is a dimension of the attack that they have not possessed, and that RIFC, particularly thinking about those defensive midfielders, will have to contend with if Hartford is going to be successful, and RIFC will have to be thoughtful about that.
Jason, do you have a lineup that comes to mind for you, or a matchup, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, thinking about, Siaha kind of getting under the skin of a lot of our fans, and he can kind of, if things start to go well for him, I could see him kind of getting up to some antics again, and can that cause fires to flare between the players? On top of that, I think the midfield battle is going to be where this will be interesting in terms of when it's going to depend on tactically how Connor approaches this game. We know earlier he just said, I want more of the ball. But then also when we were effective against them, we had less of the ball. So it's this conundrum of like, what tactics is he going to employ on the night?
Yeah, I've got the rematch between the Williams. I know we won't necessarily see them in too many duels outside of maybe some aerial, throws into the box and set piece defending. But, I look and it's very reminiscent of the Eastern Conference Final, where these two strikers were trying to lead the charge for their respective teams last season. The difference here, though, is last year there was pressure on both of them to produce in those games, but Augie felt like more of a distribution outlet where he'd be the receiving, target forward, but then there'd be the redirect back into a scrambling or running into a second channel midfield. That's how we kind of saw the Robbie Mertz goal unfold that took us out of the Eastern Conference Final. JJ, on the other hand, was just trying to do everything on it with his own 2 feet. This year, looking at what Augie Williams has had to produce and the lack of offensive support to what Oliver was just saying, I kind of think the roles have flipped here, where Augie has more responsibilities now to do something in the box, whereas JJ has all of this attacking outlet in Leo Afonso, Augustine. He's got both wingers scoring goals. There's a lot more support for JJ than I think there's ever been. So I feel like those roles have been flipped, and it'll be really interesting on the weekend to see how this manifests on the pitch. But we got to go to our final break, and when we return, we've got the biggest storylines ahead of El Clamico. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entricate and Jason Carey.
All right, guys, this information is a little bit dated, but I want to bring this up because I saw it and I couldn't not think of it as we approach this Prinx Cup match. There's a graph here on the screen provided by the fans over of Lou City at Vamos Morados that they have this formula that calculates the points and goals versus expected points to goals ratio, and they're creating a kind of luck chart. The data is a week old. It's very important that we think about that, considering what Rhode Island just did to the Charleston Battery on the week, but it's basing the amount of points each team has earned compared to its goal production. And if you look on the screen, this graph suggests a couple of things. One, it suggests that RIFC is an average middle-of-the-table team that's been extremely unlucky, and that two, it's suggesting that Hartford is a very poor quality team that has been extremely lucky. So I don't know which one of you gentlemen wants to go first here and talk about this data. Does this feel right? Does this pass the eyeball test?
Yeah, I mean, it does to me from a Hartford perspective. I don't think Hartford has been particularly good so far this season. And Brendan Burke has been pretty explicit about that, right? When talking to him before games or after games, that they're trying to grind these results out until they have the first 11 that he was kind of picturing this offseason, until that's available. I don't think Hartford's performances have been particularly good. They've been effective. They've managed to grind out points. They've definitely had a little bit of luck. You will see some fans say, well, we had, balls cleared off the line. Maybe the luck's gone against us. But I don't know. I think Hartford has a long way to go. There's maybe a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel on those terms in terms of some of these guys are coming back from injury. But yeah, this resonates with me.
Yeah, looking at this, I think it makes sense, especially considering where we see RIFC laid just right over the good quality bar, because it's felt like we know something is there and they're working on it. And it just felt like maybe some of the passes are just a slight bit off, but we're not so far as like, far right rowdies who are like very, very good quality, right? There's still some, I think, improvement that this team can do.
I think when I look at this, you mentioned the Rowdies. You also can look at El Paso, but then on the opposite side, at the kitty cat corner, I see Sporting Club Jackson and Monterey Bay just on an island of desolation by themselves, and it does fit the narrative. So like there may be something to this. I'm gonna have to check back in with Vamos Morados more often on the luck factor here. Moving on to the next topic, though, want to talk about something that I don't like bringing up, but Jason, we have not seen a lot of success in Connecticut when it comes to El Clamico.
Yeah, we've got a 1-1 draw and a 3-0 loss. So haven't particularly enjoyed our travels. I mean, I've had great times with the fans, and you know, it's always a good time visiting. But the actual match itself maybe hasn't really gone our way very often over there.
Oliver, any theory as to why these clubs typically don't see success when they travel to their away opponent?
Well, I think last season for RIFC coming to Hartford in the summer, they just came to Hartford at a really bad time. Hartford were on this streak where they were unbeaten in 9. During that time, they were outscoring their opponents like 21-6 over that period. So they were just playing really well. And I don't know that there was really much fault on RFC's part in that game. They just came up against a team that was essentially a buzzsaw for like 3 months.
I feel that the storylines feel, again, maybe we're switching them a little bit. It felt like the 0-0 on Big CBS didn't do anything for either team, but it felt like that Jägermeister Cup match really put you guys on a trajectory that no one could stop for a while until you shot yourselves in the foot by letting Mamadou Dieng go to Minnesota. I wonder if, like, I'm kind of almost hoping, I'm trying to manifest that Open Cup result is the same thing for us. Maybe we'll see it in Prinx Cup action this weekend. But that gets me to the second point. Now, again, the narrative being flipped. Jason, Hartford can't score to save their lives right now.
Yeah, Oliver's talking about some of the goals that they've lost here, but like they haven't scored in the last 4 in all competitions. You know, is there more than just like replacing those? Is there something else in the team that's maybe not going their way this season?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned already Emmanuel Samadia and Samuel Carriaga having missed a lot of time this season, and I think that's a big part of it. Now, I don't want to diminish the fact that Kyle Edwards and Mamadou Dieng are both gone, right? 20-plus goals leaving your team from season to season is a huge loss. And so far, they haven't really also replaced the forward play. But I think if you look at what was so successful for Hartford last season, they almost completely bypassed the midfield. They were not worried about, oh, can we progress the ball up the middle of the pitch? They were thinking, we're just going to go down the outside. We've got 2 incredible wingbacks. We'll go around the outside, and that's just going to be our strategy. And it worked for this incredible summer period. And then it fizzled a little bit towards the end of the season. Obviously, Pittsburgh were able to completely frustrate them in the playoffs, and then they lost them penalties. But I think Emmanuel Samadia missing from this team has meant that Hartford have been essentially one-sided. And we saw against Loudoun at the weekend, they were able to have success down the right-hand side, overlapping Sebastian Anderson and Michin Galina. But then it was very easy for Loudoun to sort of erase Augustine Williams in the middle because there wasn't really anything else for them to worry about. They didn't have to worry about a wing-back overlapping on the other side. And they also didn't have to worry about an attacking midfielder because Samuel Carriaga has been missing, and as I said, his understudy Barry Coffey has been missing as well. Carriaga and Coffey provide that attacking thrust through the middle. If you look at Hartford's 2 league wins, they won 3-0 in Jacksonville, and they got a goal and an assist from Samuel Carriaga. They won 3-1 in Brooklyn, and they got a goal and an assist from Barry Coffey. And I don't think it's coincidental that those are the 2 games where they truly had a good performance from an attacking midfielder. And let's also remember that in that first game, Samuel Carriaga played 20 minutes, and in that second game, Barry Coffey played 45 minutes. So they haven't even had a game where they got a full 90 minutes or even 60 minutes from one of those players. And I think what you're looking at when you see Hartford's results and their inability to score over this stretch of games is 2 things. One, they're very one-sided because they don't have the quality on the left-hand side at the moment. And 2, they have been lacking that player through the middle who is making that late run, who has any kind of creative sense in the attacking third. And so it's really developing into, can they force something down the right-hand side? And Augustine Williams is able to beat his man, or Michin Galina is able to beat his man. And it just hasn't been working because this league is not at such a low level that one individual player can just simply beat his man and make the difference.
Getting into the lightning round here, so quick answers from the both of you. Jason, first and foremost, we've moved from Jaeger to Prinx. How are we supposed to honor these matches?
I mean, you wouldn't drink a tire, right? Would you? I mean, we could try, but I don't think it's a good option.
I'm not ready for rubber poisoning. Oliver, Hartford winless in the last 5. Is this team going through a moment, or is there trouble brewing under the surface?
I just think they're just going through it. It's been the injuries. You look at the long list of players who've been unavailable, whether it's through injury or other reasons. As these players start to come back, there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. And while it has been extremely challenging, I think things should improve through the summer.
Jason, what for this bad weather, is this still going to be a shorts and flip-flops day for you?
We'll see. It'll be a game day decision.
Are the Hawaiian shirts coming out?
I mean, potentially.
You'd love to see it. And then Oliver, final question of the night. How many Messi or Ronaldo kits will we see at Hartford Stadium on the weekend?
Too many.
What's the over-under? Is it 10?
Boy, that's a great question. I think you might see, I will say over 10.
Okay. All right. Then even more quick, because we're running out of time. Give me the 3 key takeaways for each of your teams to win this match. Oliver, we'll start with you as the guest.
I think for Hartford, they have to be alert to the counter. We saw how deadly Rhode Island can be. Hartford have been bitten that way before, and they have to be focused and alert to that. 2, they have to absolutely get forward and get a goal. I fully expect Samuel Carriaga to start because I think Brendan Burke wants to come out hot, and they want to get an early goal. And the only way they'll do that is if they have the best players on the pitch. And the third thing I will say is they've got to stay healthy. Like that, and honestly, more than anything, this is about getting through this game without somebody else getting a soft tissue injury. And there's a long way to go in this season.
So Hartford's going to treat this like a preseason game. Fantastic. Jason, quick 3. What do you got?
Yeah, RIFC need to not play with the ball. As much as Kano wants to, I think Hartford have the second lowest possession.
You're going to get us in so much trouble.
Force them to have the ball. We saw it work in Open Cup, and then they need to be clinical when it comes to their chances. Hartford has had a fairly strong defense, and we know Siaha has been a bit of a villain against us. So if they can be clinical with those scores, hit them on the counter, I think we can see success this weekend.
The only thing I'm going to add to that is the fact that we saw it last night, despite the goals that were coming. It felt like, again, you playing in those 5-minute segments, it felt like every time we scored, we almost quickly got our cage rattled again. So I think there just needs to be a little bit of patience and a calming down and winning that next 5 minutes before moving and growing continuously into the game. It's something that's happened too many times this season, and it felt a little testy despite the great win last night. So that's the add-on I have. Jason, break down this ref report for us.
Yeah, we got a head ref here of Mohamed Kolea, assistant refs Eric Schreiber and Justin Lopez, with the 4th official Laszlo Sandler.
And if you are heading to the match this Saturday, please check in on the Defiant 1636 socials. Go into the Discord so that you can have all of your timing. I don't even have all that information figured out just yet myself, so get all of your updates there. If you're not making it to Connecticut, or you just outright refuse to travel to that state, you can catch all the action either at the watch party at the Guild with the rest of the Defiants that aren't traveling, or you can watch it from the comfort of your home on CBS Sports Network, ESPN Select, or 790 The Score on the AM dial. Reminder, kickoff is at 7 p.m. And like I said, it's going to be raining, so plan accordingly. Guys, I am so over these early soccer months in New England. Oliver, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm going to ask where fans can follow you and your coverage and your work, but I don't think you're going to get a strong following out of this group. But
well,
please,
if you've loved the dulcet sound of my voice and you want more of that, you can listen to The Average Fan. We're recording once a week right now. And if you don't like my voice, but you think my thoughts are great, you can get them in print at theblazingmusket.com.
Oliver, thanks so much for all you do. I can't wait to see you this weekend.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Oliver. We'll catch you all next time. Anchors up.
Anchors up.
You've been listening to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. You can follow the show on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at RIFC Podcast and at Raising Anchor on Instagram. And be sure to check out and subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you listen by searching for Raising Anchor. Make sure to check out all of our coverage over at the Blazing Musket for all your New England soccer coverage, including RIFC news at theblazingmusket.com. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask you to be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the show. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm your main man, Juju, and on behalf of the Raising Anchor crew, goodbye for now. And as always, we are Rhode Island FC.